From Utah's first TV station, ABC4 News celebrates 75 years.
Welcome to ABC4 News at 10. I'm Glenn Mills.
And I'm Emily Flores. We thank you for joining us. We do begin tonight with the weather. March roaring in, keeping the momentum going from an extraordinary active February. And with all this active winter weather comes avalanche mitigation. Check this out. This is a site you may not have seen before. UDOT Conwoods posting this picture to social media saying they'll be doing mitigation tests tomorrow. They say they are already preparing for the next storm. So to get the latest on that, let's head over and check in with forecaster, ABC4's forecaster, Bob Bedore.
Bob, what's the latest?
Well, the latest is that roar that we had with March coming in starting to die down a little bit now. As it's going to start clearing away a little bit, something we'll be talking about here a little bit. Let's take a little quick look and see Blanding, where we had good snow just a little while ago. The snow died away, but I wanted to show it because some poor soul got out there real quick, and look at the great job they did when they were getting rid of those the snow on the sidewalks there. That's only been the last half hour. So someone, great job. Whoever you are in Blanding, love you, love the dedication to your work. So let's look and see what we've got, the storm tracker radar. You can see most of it is starting to go away in the state. We do have a couple little places that we're still working through on the eastern side. Little bits right there down. You see Blanding was starting to work its way out. But down south, we're starting to see that coming back up. Now, this is all down south. It's starting to build its way back up a little bit. And this is why we still have some winter weather alerts going on here in our fair state. And they'll be going on throughout the night until into the morning hours. You can see it's just really along that southeast corner where we still have the winter weather advisory and still a little bit of a winter storm warning, because that storm hopefully could be coming back in, get a few more inches going through. Not going to be a lot more coming through, but we got most of it looking pretty good, though. Let's look at the snowfalls we did get. In southern Utah areas, you see that 8 in New Harmony, Zion National Park 7, 6 in Kanab, Diamond Valley with 3. Northern Utah got a little bit, not quite as much, but Oakley, well, looking really good with over 10 inches. But you can see Logan, Bountiful, and then we've got Manaway. Salt Lake City got blocked by the Oakers, but still got in an inch. So not too bad as we take a look at what's going on in the state right now. 30s throughout most. I'll tell you what you can expect tomorrow and coming into our weekend in just a little bit. Emily, back to you, Glenn.
Bob, thank you. He's been charged several times, accused of violating children, and every time a judge deemed him not competent to stand trial, releasing him.
Yes, but in Jonathan Sobranis' latest case, a judge did something they've never done. He ordered Sobranis undergo restoration treatment to see if he could become competent and stand trial. ABC4's Courtney Johns joining us with an update in this case. Courtney?
Yeah, Emily, the judge gave the Department of Health and Human Services 90 days to work with Jonathan Sobranis in the hopes of restoring competency. But with the evaluator again telling the judge he's not competent to stand trial, the judge says his hands are tied.
I will note that I am extremely concerned about the victims in this case, victims from prior cases and potential future victims. However, this court has to work within the laws of this state. And unfortunately, this is where we are left.
Prosecutors claim Sobranis plays up his disability to get him out of trouble. And the judge also noted inconsistencies with his abilities. But after receiving this latest assessment, the judge ordered his charges be dismissed. This included lewdness, assault, and child sex abuse. Stephanie Davis says Sobranis victimized her family, and our justice system continues to fail victims.
It wasn't the judge. It wasn't the prosecution. It wasn't even the defense. It was our laws. It was Utah failed.
That being said, this time Sobranis will stay in jail for the time being. He's accused of using a New Zealand storage platform to download and distribute child pornography with end-to-end encryption, which is a federal offense. And because of this, he'll be evaluated again, but at the federal level, which means he could still be deemed competent under federal standards. And if he is found competent in that federal case, the AG says it would allow them to revisit this case in the future. Back to you.
All right, thank you, Courtney. Well, one person's in the hospital tonight after a traffic stop ends in gunfire. 5 Farmington police officers involved.
Yeah, that's happening at a parking lot near the post office at 145 East State Street earlier this afternoon. The Farmington police chief saying they've only had 3 police shootings in the last 3 years. Details on what happened are limited, but we do know the officers had pulled the car over for a missing license plate. The chief saying so many officers responded because they were called in to help.
He called for backup, and that's the nature of our business. When an officer says he needs help, then if you're in the area, you come running.
Officers performing CPR on scene, but that person's condition unknown tonight. They are also still investigating whether this person was armed. The 5 officers are on paid administrative leave pending an investigation from the county attorney.
And in Salt Lake County, police arrest a man in West Valley who they say took off during a traffic stop and hit a pedestrian. Officers tried to pull over 21-year-old Marcos Garcia Luga near 36th West and 31st South. They say he took off and turned into oncoming traffic. The car was T-boned, sending one car spinning into a 67-year-old man. The other driver was not injured, but that man is in serious condition. Police saying if he then ran off to a house in West Valley, officers entered the home and arrested him after a brief fight. They say the homeowners did not know he was inside.
Senator Mike Lee taking to the Senate floor in D.C., calling for the U.S. to renegotiate an agreement with Japan. The government there sentencing Navy Lieutenant Ridge Alconis to 3 years behind bars. They claim Alconis was sleeping behind the wheel when he crashed into and killed 2 people, but Alconis's family and U.S. Navy investigators say he was suffering a medical episode. 4 weeks ago, Senator Lee setting a deadline for the Japanese Prime Minister to transfer Alconis back to the U.S. Lee saying he agreed to this time frame based on a promise from Japan's foreign minister. That deadline was yesterday.
Foreign Minister Hayashi, you did make that commitment to me. I have not forgotten it, and I know you haven't either.
Now the senator is calling for a congressional review of the U.S.-Japan status of forces agreement.
And today, Utah representatives voting unanimously to pass a bill out of the legislature. It will change the way police respond to domestic violence calls. Senate Bill 117 requires officers to conduct lethality assessments for victims of domestic violence. It's a series of questions used to determine whether or not their life is indeed under threat. So if so, that victim is immediately connected with potentially life-saving resources. This bill, very dear to Lieutenant Governor Deidre Henderson, whose cousin Mandy Main was killed last year.
In Mandy's case, she didn't understand the risk that she was in. I think a lot of victims don't. But this allows law enforcement the opportunity to speak in a way that they can recognize the threat.
The lieutenant governor applauding the bills moving forward. She released a statement that says in part, quote, "While this past year has been painful for my family, we see this as a huge victory for victims of domestic violence in Utah." Now the bill heads to the governor's desk without a single no vote from lawmakers.
It's Women's Week at the University of Utah, and today the school hosting a panel discussion on public policy around gender-based violence. The 2 panelists, who are doctors, say gender-based violence includes domestic violence, sexual violence, and human trafficking. The panelists highlighting how important it is for people to be informed about these issues and to talk to their local representatives. Now, one of the panelists saying public policy doesn't just apply to local and federal government. You can enact change in many places.
Our own organizations have policy. The University of Utah has policies too, right? It's not just like going to our legislature is the only place. We can enact change in the places that we work and in the places that we live.
Women's Week happening every year. There will be movie screenings, more panel presentations, and discussions on all the ways law and policy overlap with our own individual experiences. This all happening through Friday.
Coming up, good news for people who rely on insulin. One company capping the cost. How one man who needs the drug is responding.
And we're looking live over St. George. Still a few little clouds there, but they're going to be working their way out. We're going to see a much calmer, drier forecast for down south. Up north, a little more active. I'll tell you all about it coming up in my full forecast right after this.